Welcome to Exploring Seth's The Nature of Personal Reality with us. Our deep dive mission today is, well, it's to grapple with a pretty foundational assertion, maybe even radical. This idea that there's a profound, really active connection between your personal beliefs, how your conscious mind works, your imagination, and the actual tangible reality you experience every day.
It is radical, and this source material, it really asks you to shift how you view, well, everything, causality, mainly. Its central claim, you really can't avoid it, is this. Your beliefs, whether you recognize them or they're kind of hidden away, they are the absolute foundation, the immediate foundation for your emotions, your physical health, your relationships, basically your whole experienced reality.
Okay, so we're going to try and unpack that. How does this mechanism actually work? We'll look at the conscious mind's role, which seems often misunderstood, and how we inherit some of our earliest, maybe most obstructive beliefs. And then pivot to some practical methods. There's even something described as a game for changing your life by essentially changing your mind.
Right. Let's start with the basics, the mechanics of consciousness in physical life. Consciousness itself isn't physical, but right now, for us, it operates through the physical brain. You can think of the brain as this incredibly efficient, focusing tool. It takes that broad consciousness and narrows its focus right down into three-dimensional space. And that intense focus is exactly why we perceive time as linear, like a series of moments, one after the other.
And we get this focus and the framework for it really early on, don't we? As kids, we just naturally adopt our parents' ideas about who we are, what reality is. We absorb it all through how they act, what they say, and the source even mentions telepathy.
Yes, through example, conversation, and telepathy. It's about creating a protective framework, an initial boundary.
Which you need for growth, initially.
Exactly. It defines the safe limits for development. But here's the really critical point. That framework, even though it was necessary for the child, it's not meant to be a life sentence for the adult. But so often we find ourselves still operating within those old limits, those childhood beliefs, long after they've stopped being useful.
Yeah, you can see that play out with emotional patterns. Like a kid scrapes their knee and cries.
Yeah.
That first reaction, that's natural, right? Physical stimulus.
Totally natural.
But if it gets reinforced by a parent's belief, maybe a parent who thinks, oh no, any little injury is a disaster waiting to happen, then the child's reaction gets prolonged. It sort of sticks.
It gets adopted as a fixed pattern. That initial pain response becomes something else entirely, like a habit of gloominess or expecting bad things. The reaction becomes disconnected from the actual event.
Which brings us to this hierarchy you mentioned. This is key.
It's fundamental. Imagination and emotions follow beliefs. They don't lead. The core idea is how you think is how you feel. Not the other way around. Your beliefs are like the prime directive. They automatically pull in your emotional energy, your imagination, to basically prove themselves right.
Okay, hold on. If I feel overwhelmingly sad, isn't that emotion the driver? What if I try really hard to imagine being happy, but deep down I still believe things are awful?
Well, according to this framework, you'll just wear yourself out. If your core belief is, say, the world is hostile, any attempt to imagine happiness gets filtered through that belief. Your imagination might briefly picture something nice, but the belief immediately labels it unrealistic, maybe childish, and your emotions will snap back to confirming the hostility. The belief is the lens, always shaping the energy flow.
Right. That really challenges a lot of common self-help thinking. Like the example in the source about someone overweight trying to pin it on some past trauma, searching for a reason for their guilt. But this material says, no, the real issue is just the belief in guilt itself.
Exactly. That belief needs to express itself somehow. The weight in that case is just the outward sign, the evidence the belief creates for itself.
There's also that critique of Western culture's fear. The idea that without concepts like sin and punishment, we'd lose all inner discipline.
Yes, and Seth argues the opposite, that the world is chaotic precisely because of these guilt-inducing concepts, not in spite of them.
Okay, and this ties into another big roadblock belief you mentioned.
Ah, yes, the idea that the answers, the reasons for our current unwanted behaviors are buried, that they're deep down in some inaccessible part of the unconscious, needing years of digging to find.
But isn't that what a lot of psychology suggests? That trauma and core issues are buried deep. Is this source just saying that's flat out wrong?
It's saying the belief that the answers are buried is what creates the barrier. It's a clever trap. That conviction itself locks you out of your own consciousness. It stops you from seeing answers that are actually right there, available in your conscious mind, just unexamined.
You convince yourself it's hidden so you don't look where it actually is.
You're essentially denying yourself access by believing access is impossibly difficult.
Wow. Okay. It sounds like this whole thing operates like self-hypnosis, almost. If you concentrate heavily on any idea, I'm sick, I'm successful, I'm a failure, you're basically hypnotizing yourself. You're reinforcing that belief's power over your actions and feelings, giving yourself powerful suggestions constantly.
That's a very good way to put it. Self-hypnosis is essentially what's happening. And to really nail down this connection between inner conflict and physical reality, the sonographer case study is incredibly revealing. This person, who was actually transcribing this very material, started getting this strange stiffness, a clumsiness in their writing hand.
Which is crucial because writing was their main way of expressing these important ideas, right?
Exactly. It directly impacted their work. So they looked into it and uncovered two really strong conflicting beliefs operating at the same time. First, the belief that he wasn't communicating well enough verbally with his mother, and second, a simultaneous belief that this lack of verbal communication was fundamentally wrong, something deserving punishment.
Okay, so he felt guilty about not talking to his mother enough or about certain things.
Yes, and here's the connection. He was successfully communicating incredibly profound ideas through his writing, the very work he was doing, a major accomplishment. But he felt guilty for not communicating those same kinds of ideas verbally to his mother, whose primary mode of expression he associated with speech.
Ah, I see. So his own primary tool was the hand for writing and drawing. His mother's, in his mind, was speech. The conflict between succeeding with the hand, writing, and failing with speech, verbally with mother, led to sabotaging the hand.
It became the target of the self-punishment, yes. The body was getting contradictory signals. Use this hand to write this vital truth versus this hand belongs to someone who fails at verbal communication and must be hindered.
Quite specific. The internal conflict literally caused a physical problem in the tool of expression.
Precisely. The stiffness, the clumsiness in the hand was the physical result of that unexamined tug-of-war between accomplishment and guilt.
That one story really drives home how hidden, conflicting beliefs can send these scrambled, even destructive messages to our bodies, without us even realizing the conflict exists.
And these internal conflicts often get amplified by how society tends to view the mind. Western culture, for centuries really, has swung between two extremes, neither very helpful. On one hand, you have this over-reliance on purely conscious reason. The mind is just a computer, ignoring intuition, ignoring the inner self's resources.
Like treating it as totally separate from anything deeper.
Right, and then the pendulum swings the other way, especially maybe with the popularization of the unconscious idea. Suddenly, the conscious mind is seen as the bad guy, almost like a tumor, blocking access to true understanding or spiritual connection.
Denigrating it completely.
Yeah. But Seth offers a synthesis, a more unified view. Consciousness isn't some poor relative of the larger self. It's presented as this amazing unified tool. It's designed specifically to assess both the outer physical world and the inner world of the self. And the resources of the inner self, all that intuition and deeper knowledge, are meant to be readily available to the conscious mind to use for its purposes.
It's meant to be a partnership. But you mentioned this partnership got severed or at least damaged, particularly around the Industrial Revolution, starting like 1760s. Why then?
Well, that period saw a huge cultural shift towards materialism. The belief really solidified that thought, consciousness, had little or no real effect on physical matter. Science increasingly focused on examining dead nature, dissecting things, categorizing, measuring. The sense of inherent life or spirit in the world got lost.
It became purely mechanical.
Yes. And this very rigid materialist view naturally fostered a widespread belief in powerlessness. If the world is just matter obeying fixed laws and thought doesn't affect it, then you're just subject to those laws.
So people felt helpless because they'd intellectually cut the connection. They decided their thoughts didn't shape their environment, so they didn't. They stopped being active creators in their own minds.
Exactly. Which, of course, brings us back to how to reclaim that connection, how to actually change things. The sources lay out a practical three-pronged method for shifting a negative belief you've identified. First, you consciously generate the emotion that is the opposite of the one usually caused by that negative belief.
Okay, so if the belief makes you feel fear, you actively try to generate feelings of security or confidence.
Precisely. Second, you deliberately direct your imagination towards content that is the opposite of what the negative belief usually dictates.
So if the belief is I always fail, you imagine succeeding vividly.
Yes. And the third prong is crucial. You consciously affirm to yourself intellectually that the old, unwanted belief is just an idea about reality. It's an interpretation, not reality itself.
You have to sort of downgrade its status in your own mind. Tell yourself it's just a concept, not a fact.
You have to rob it of its authority. And this leads right into what sounds like the most enjoyable part, the game.
Right, the game. Tell us about that.
The instruction is basically to playfully suspend disbelief for a set time, to ignore the current external evidence and just pretend. Act as if your desired reality is already true. If you're worried about money, you imagine having and spending what you need, feel the security. If you're dealing with illness, you imagine yourself fully healthy, doing things you want to do, feeling strong and capable.
It sounds deceptively simple, almost like child's play. But I suspect actually doing it triggers a lot internally.
Oh, absolutely. You need to be prepared for a temporary shockwave because this act of pretending immediately throws you up against those powerful conflicting beliefs we talked about. You might be imagining wealth and suddenly get hit with a wave of, I don't deserve this, or money is inherently bad, or something will go wrong.
Or imagining health and feeling I must be punished for something.
Exactly. That friction, that clash between the desired reality and the old programming, that's where the real work happens. That's the point of transformation.
And there's a warning about patience, isn't there? About checking for results.
Yes, a very important one. When you genuinely shift an underlying belief, the physical reality, the evidence, will eventually start to reflect that new belief. Old patterns fall away. But, and this is key, you must resist the urge to constantly anxiously check for results. Is it working yet? Is it working yet?
Because that anxiety itself is broadcasting doubt and fear.
Exactly. It negates the positive belief you're trying to establish. It reinforces the fear of failure. You have to trust the process.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the core message from this deep dive into the nature of personal reality really seems to be your reality isn't just happening to you. It's an active creation, constantly being generated by the engine of your beliefs.
That's the heart of it. Beliefs drive imagination and emotion, which then manifest as your experience. And it should also touch on the social side effects. Changing deeply held beliefs isn't just an internal process. Be prepared for some friction with people around you, especially those who are used to you being a certain way, who maybe rely on your old reality.
Like family resisting someone's recovery because it upsets the established dynamic.
Precisely. Remember how children absorb beliefs telepathically. The source suggests you now need to consciously broadcast your new status, your new reality, through that same imaginative telepathic channel. And you have to accept that some people might just drift out of your experience if their reality and yours no longer align.
That's a significant point. Okay, so the very first step, it seems, for anyone listening,
Is distinguishing you from your beliefs, realizing they're just ideas you currently accept, and understanding that what you consciously believe to be true, truly accept as true, becomes true in your personal experience.
All right, so as a final thought, something provocative for you to consider building on this material. Instead of immediately launching a hunt for all your negative self-sabotaging beliefs, which can feel a bit overwhelming, try flipping the script. Identify, say, 3 areas in your life right now where things are going really well, areas you find genuinely successful and satisfying. Now, examine those areas. How are your imagination and your emotions already working together perfectly to reinforce those good beliefs? What does that feel like? What are you picturing?
See how effortlessly you maintain that success. The mechanism is already working for you in those areas.
So the question becomes, can you consciously isolate that feeling, that process of alignment you're already using naturally for success, and learn to apply that same mechanism, that same alignment of belief, imagination, and emotion to the areas where you currently feel dissatisfied?
The proof of your creative power isn't hidden. It's right there in the parts of your life that are already working.